The distress beacon crackled through the void like a dying star's last gasp. Lucas Chin sat hunched over the navigation console of the Wandering Star, his salvage vessel drifting through the Kessian Nebula's amber clouds. Most captains would have ignored it. Distress calls this far into uncharted space usually meant pirates or worse. But Lucas had never been most captains. "Susan, you catching this?" he called to his co-pilot. Susan Rodriguez emerged from the engine bay, wiping grease from her dark hands. Her sharp eyes narrowed as she listened to the signal's rhythmic pulse. "That's not standard Federation code. It's organic somehow, like a heartbeat." "Great. Probably some alien creature about to eat us," Lucas muttered, but his hands were already adjusting course toward the signal's origin. Susan smirked. "You say that every time, yet here we are flying straight into trouble." The Wandering Star descended through a belt of crystalline asteroids, each one humming with an eerie bioluminescence. The signal led them to a small moon, its surface scarred by recent weapon fire. Lucas brought the ship down near a massive crater, its edges still glowing with residual heat. They found the source within minutes. Two creatures, no larger than house cats, huddled beneath a collapsed metallic structure. Their scales shimmered with an iridescent quality that shifted between deep purple and molten gold. Membranous wings, torn and bleeding, clung to their small bodies. They looked up at the approaching humans with eyes far too intelligent, far too ancient for such small forms. "Dragons," Susan breathed, her scientific mind immediately cataloging the impossible. "Actual dragons. Lucas, do you know what this means?" Lucas knelt slowly, extending his hand. The creatures flinched but didn't flee. One of them, the smaller one with silver-tipped horns, crawled forward and nuzzled his palm. Its scales were fever-hot. "It means someone tried to kill babies," Lucas said quietly, his voice hardening. "And I don't care what species they are. That's not happening on my watch." The larger hatchling made a chittering sound, almost like speech, but in no language their translators recognized. Susan carefully scanned them with her medical kit. "They're malnourished, dehydrated, and those wing injuries. They won't survive another day out here." Lucas didn't hesitate. He scooped up both hatchlings, cradling them against his chest despite the heat radiating from their bodies. "Then we take them with us. Lucas, we don't know what. I know they're hurt. That's enough." The journey back to the ship should have been simple. It wasn't. 3 angular vessels materialized from the nebula's depths. Their hulls marked with symbols Susan recognized from xenoarchaeology texts: the Carthex Dominion, a reptilian empire that had vanished from galactic records 3,000 years ago. Wandering Star, surrender the Emberborn or be destroyed. A voice hissed through their communications array. The words were translated, but the menace was universal. Lucas strapped into the pilot's seat, the hatchling secured in a makeshift nest Susan had fashioned from emergency blankets. "Emberborn? Is that what they're called?" "Apparently," Susan said, taking her weapons station. "And someone really wants them dead." "Not today." Lucas's hands danced across the controls, and the Wandering Star lurched into motion. What followed was a dance between death and survival. Lucas had spent 15 years flying salvage operations through the galaxy's most dangerous territories. He knew every trick, every impossible maneuver that could squeeze a ship through spaces it had no right fitting through. The Wandering Star weaved between asteroids, used the nebula's magnetic interference to scatter targeting systems, and pulled gravity assists that should have torn the ship apart. Susan fired their modest defense cannons with surgical precision. Not to destroy, their weapons weren't powerful enough, but to disable sensors and redirect pursuit. The Carthex ships were faster, better armed, but they flew with military precision. Predictable, human unpredictability was their advantage. "They're hurting us," Susan shouted as 2 more ships appeared ahead. "I know." Lucas didn't slow down. Instead, he accelerated directly toward the ambush. At the last possible second, he inverted the ship, fired reverse thrusters, and sent the Wandering Star into a flat spin that would have liquefied any crew without inertial dampeners. The Carthex ships, unable to match the maneuver, collided with each other in a bloom of fire and debris. "You're insane," Susan laughed despite the terror coursing through her veins. "You say that like it's news." They broke free of the nebula into open space. Lucas immediately engaged the FTL drive, but warning lights blazed across his console. "Damage to the jump matrix. We won't make it far. The hatchlings began to glow, their scales brightening until the entire cabin was bathed in golden light. The smaller one, the one that had first approached Lucas, opened its mouth and sang. It was a sound that bypassed their ears and resonated directly in their souls. A call, a summons, a word spoken in the language of stars. Space tore open. Not a wormhole, not a jump point. Reality itself parted like a curtain, and through it emerged something that made the Carthex warships look like children's toys. The Dragon King. He was vast, his body stretching kilometers through the void, scales like continents, wings that could eclipse suns. His eyes, each one larger than their entire ship, fixed upon the wandering star with an intelligence that had witnessed the birth and death of civilizations. Lucas and Susan could only stare, frozen not by fear but by the sheer impossible majesty of what they beheld. The Dragon King's voice didn't need translation. It spoke in concepts, in pure meaning that transcended language. You saved my children. The remaining Carthex ships fled. The Dragon King didn't pursue them. His attention remained on the tiny human vessel and the two even tinier humans inside. The Carthex sought to end my bloodline, to prevent the prophecy of renewal. They failed because of you, because humans, curious and reckless and impossibly brave, chose compassion over caution. The hatchlings chirped, reuniting with their father in a cascade of light and song. Ask your reward. The debt of a king is not given lightly. Lucas and Susan exchanged glances. Finally, Lucas spoke, his voice small but steady. We don't want a reward. We couldn't leave them. That's all. The Dragon King's laughter was like the ringing of cosmic bells. Yes. This is why the prophecy speaks of humans. You act not for reward, but because your hearts demand it. Very well, you have given me my future. I give you yours. The Dragon King touched their ship, a gesture so gentle it barely registered on their sensors. Knowledge flooded into their minds. Star charts to worlds beyond Federation space. Technologies that would advance humanity centuries, and most precious of all, an invitation. When humanity is ready to walk among the ancient peoples, call my name. The debt will be remembered. The friendship will be honored. Then he was gone, taking his children home to wherever dragons dreamed. Lucas and Susan sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Susan started laughing, tears streaming down her face. We just became the galaxy's best-connected salvagers. Lucas grinned, still trembling. We saved 2 babies. That's all. Everything else is just bonus. That's so human of you. Yeah, Lucas agreed, setting course for home. I guess it is. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, 2 hatchlings sang songs of the strange, wonderful humans who had chosen kindness when cruelty would have been easier. The galaxy would remember. Humanity always made sure of that. The end.